morning, everyone, or whatever time of day it is, wherever you are. I'm in Saskatoon, in the middle of Canada, and it's morning here. I'm still working on my coffee. Yesterday morning, this time I was outside doing yard work, and this morning I wake up and the yard is completely covered with snow. So it's April in Canada. What can I say? All right. Today, we're going to be talking about one of my very favorite topics, backups, something that I am really, really passionate about. And I almost cannot say enough about backups. Well, I had so much to say about backups, I wrote a book about it. So we'll talk about that later. But backing up your Mac, for those of you who are Mac users, which I imagine is almost everyone here, if not everyone, this is very, very important stuff for you to know. Now, I have given a lot of presentations to this user group, as well as some of those other user groups that we saw the graphics of. So you probably know about me. You probably know about Take Control Books. If for some reason this is your first time hearing about Take Control Books, hey, welcome. We publish books on tech topics that are especially of interest to Apple users. Because you're a member of a Mac user group, you can save 30% on any book you ever purchase from us. You use that coupon code right there on the screen. Go to takecontrolbooks.com. I hope you will come and avail yourselves of what we have to offer. All right, let's get into it. Backups. Why do you need to back up your Mac? Do you need to back up your Mac? It's 2022. Aren't we living in the future? They don't ever talk about backups on the Starship Enterprise, right? Why do we need to back up our Macs? Well, you still do. In fact, backing up your Mac and doing it properly is one of the, it is either the most important piece of advice I can give you, or maybe one of the top two, the other one being passwords. Boy, if you have great passwords and great backups, you are way, way ahead of 99% of other Mac users. Those are really the two most important things you can do to protect your stuff. And I will just tell you briefly how I got the backup religion. I used to be one of those people who thought, backups, what a hassle. Yeah, you got to go buy a hard drive, or, back in the day, used to be a stack of floppy disks, and you got to install the software and configure it. And oh, what a hassle. I think I won't bother. Well, I sent a fan email to a certain celebrity. This was, 30 years ago or something, 25 years ago. And much to my surprise, this celebrity wrote back. And okay, it wasn't a big deal. It took all of 2 minutes of their time to say, oh, thanks for writing, blah, blah. But I'm like, oh, I got an email from this guy. Wow, that is so cool. Well, this email that I got from that guy only existed on my Mac, nowhere else. And something happened and I had a hard drive crash and I lost everything on that Mac. Yeah, my other emails, my documents and so forth, but that email, that was my one prized digital possession. There wasn't a copy of that email anyplace else. Boy, I tried disk recovery. I tried all kinds of things. No matter what I did, I could not get that email back. And that was important to me. That was when I first decided maybe backups actually would be worth the hassle. And I have been practicing and preaching the backup religion ever since. And boy, oh boy, have backups saved my bacon over and over and over again. The short version of why back up is stuff goes wrong. It could be that your computer goes kerflooey. It could be that there is a software bug. It could be that there's malware. It could be that lightning strikes and there's a power surge. It could be that your computer is stolen. It could be that some cloud service goes out. There are a million things that could go wrong. Murphy's Law says basically whatever the worst thing is that could go wrong and at the worst time, that's going to happen to you. So because we are not yet we're in the future, but we're not in the utopia where we can completely trust all technology to work for us all the time. Because stuff still goes wrong, you need to back up your data. So I want to spend a few minutes talking about something that I have found in writing about backups for many years and giving lots of presentations on this topic to groups like this. I've realized that a lot of people just don't quite have a picture of where their data really is and what could go wrong with it. And the clearer that picture is in your head, I think the more you'll understand the value of backups and how to go about them. So let's just look at that for a moment. Where is your data and what could go wrong? Let's start with a very simple case. You have a Mac, it's in front of you and there's stuff on it. We'll just let this one plain text file represent any or all of your data. All right, in this imaginary situation, your Mac isn't connected to the internet, you're not using any cloud storage, you don't have any external hard drives or SSDs, all your stuff is just on that computer. All right. In this very simple situation, what could go wrong? Well, as I mentioned earlier, you could have bugs in software that accidentally corrupt or delete your stuff. There could be some kind of disk error with your SSD or hard drive. There could be malware. You, an actual human being, might make a mistake. I know, incredible, shocking. Me make a mistake? But it happens. I personally have accidentally hit the wrong key to delete stuff that was really important and then not realize that I did that until much, much later. It happens. Of course, your Mac could be stolen, there could be a fire, a hurricane, some other disaster that takes out your data. So if your stuff, your important stuff, exists only in one place, and that one place is on your Mac, then it is risky. Stuff could happen to it. Let's look at a different situation. I'm enlightened now. I don't keep my stuff on my Mac. I keep my stuff in the cloud. I do most of my writing and content creation and email and all those other things in a web browser. And so maybe I'm using Google Docs, or maybe I'm using Dropbox, or maybe I'm using Microsoft 365, or any of the bajillions of other places that you can store and create data. If you have an iCloud account, you can actually log into iCloud.com and use Pages and Numbers and Keynote right there. So maybe you're thinking, I've solved that problem. I don't have to worry about anything happening to my Mac because all my important stuff is safely in the cloud. Well, that could also be a problem. Now, one of the advantages, I will say, to keeping your stuff in the cloud is that most cloud providers have some form of versioning built in. And we're going to talk more about versioning in a few minutes. That is to say, you save a document, do some more work on it, save it again, come back the next day, make some other changes, save it again. And now you can go back through those older versions of a file. That's excellent, because if you realize, oh, I'm writing the great American novel and whoops, I guess my cat walked across the keyboard when I wasn't looking and deleted chapter 12. That's pretty important. You can go back and get at an earlier version of your files. So that's the good thing, but the bad thing is stuff goes wrong in the cloud. Perhaps you have heard of outages. All right, sometimes I'll wake up and I'll look at Twitter and go, oh, Slack is down today, or oh, Twitter is offline, or oh, some other service that a lot of people depend on, they've had some problem, whatever. Servers got messed up, or some router died, or an undersea fiber optic cable was cut. whatever happens, happens. And for a period of time, which might be minutes or hours or days, you are unable to access your very important documents that live only in the cloud. Also, even big companies like Apple and Google can have bugs, can have outages, can have human error that could even result in your data being lost forever. It has also happened not infrequently that due to a mistake or a misunderstanding or who knows what, somebody gets locked out of their account. Could be a matter of identity theft, could be a matter of you said something and a filter caught it and misinterpreted it, whatever. If Apple or Microsoft or Dropbox or Google or whoever it is you've entrusted your data to decides, yeah, we don't really think that person should have access to their account anymore, even though your data might be totally intact, you might not be able to get at it. All that to say, although there are definitely some advantages of keeping your data in the cloud, keeping it only in the cloud could also put your data at risk. Well, let's be even smarter. All right, let's keep your data on your Mac and in the cloud. Surely that will solve all the problems, right? It's getting there, but not quite there. So in this example, let's say I use Dropbox and I've got some stuff in my Dropbox folder that synced to the cloud, synced to Dropbox, the service. Oh, I also use iCloud Drive. So I've got some stuff in my iCloud Drive folder and that syncs up to iCloud and that's all fine. I'll remind you, both of these services and most others also offer versioning. So you're protected if you need to, if you've discovered there's an error in some version of a document and need to get back to an earlier version. That's great. But all of the same problems that could arise with data that's stored only locally, as well as all the problems that could arise with data that's stored in the cloud, can still happen. But on top of that, versioning may be great, but when you are relying on the kind of versioning that a cloud service offers, most of the time you are limited to 30 days worth of revisions. If I discovered today that I really need the version of some document that I created in early March, more than a month ago, I'm out of luck. So limited version history is a problem. And another problem is deleted files. So again, the services vary somewhat in how they handle these, but it's usually the same rule. If you delete a file from your cloud storage, that is to say you delete a file from that folder on your Mac that syncs to the cloud, it'll be deleted in the cloud as well. And you can go back for usually, again, 30 days and say, oh, this file that I deleted a week ago, I need that back. So that's great, but what if you don't realize that for more than 30 days, then again, you're out of luck. So when you are trying to figure out, do I need to have backups? What do those backups need to look like? How many backups do I need? Always take some time to think through what kind of data you have and where it is. Does my data exist only on my Mac? Does it exist only on the cloud? Does it exist in both places? What would happen if my Mac were stolen? What would happen if I had an internet outage? What would happen if some, data center that Apple runs blew up? What would happen if some catastrophe arose? Could I still get my data back? And how would I get it back? The how turns out to be rather important. Now, there is another thing that we as Mac users have enjoyed for a number of years that at first blush seems almost sort of like automatic backups. And I'm surprised that I don't hear more said about this. It is a terrific feature that is built into not every Mac app, but a lot of Mac apps. If you don't know about it, you should know about it. This is another one of those things that it's great and I'm glad it's there and I've used it, but it's not the perfect and complete solution that you might think, and that is versions. So for a number of years, Mac OS has had this capability that developers can optionally use, not all of them do. You have some file on your Mac. There it is. Now, let's say you don't have any backups at all at this point. You're not using cloud storage, not using iCloud, Dropbox, anything like that, just on your Mac. You have a file and over time you change it. You add things, you delete things, you rearrange things. Every time you save a copy, Mac OS keeps a copy of the previous version in such a way that you can step back through those older copies. And that's what versions does for you. So here's an example. I just opened up a plain text, rich text document in TextEdit, and I typed some words, some names of some numbers there. All right, there's my document. Now, let's say I need to go back to an older version of this file. What would I do? Well, I would go up to the File menu, go down to Revert to, and choose Browse All Versions. You can try this yourself. Create a file, save it, make some changes, save again, make some changes, save again, and then do this. Go to File, Revert to, Browse All Versions. Remember, TextEdit supports this. A lot of apps do, a lot of apps don't. When you do that, your screen changes into this sort of time travel interface that looks suspiciously like Time Machine. And we'll get to Time Machine shortly. It looks like Time Machine, but it isn't. This is also the interface for versions. So what you can do is use these up and down arrows to navigate forward and backward through time. So in this example, I've clicked the up arrow and I've navigated back to the next to last save of this file. And you notice they're slightly different. The next to last save didn't have the line 6 in it, and it shows me a preview right there. And I can scroll through the preview and do whatever I want. Another way to access this is to use these little, there's a little slider. You can't quite see it in this image on the right. You can just drag up to the time or date that you would like to see that version of the file. And if I decide, yes, that version on the right is in fact the one I want, you click the restore button and boom, that comes back to you. So versioning is extremely useful. I wish that all apps supported it. And if all apps did support it, then maybe my case about backups would be weakened just ever so slightly. It's neat, but because not all apps support it, it's not something you can count on all the time. Also, versioning in this representation does not help you with deleted files. If I delete the entire file, then I can't use this interface at all. There's no way to get back to it. So it's nice, it's helpful, you should take advantage of it, but it won't solve all of your backup problems. Now, it turns out that there's a way that you can take this concept of versioning, that is to say, being able to go back to not only older versions of files, but even deleted files, and apply that to everything on your Mac. Anything that you have put there yourself, any file or email or contact or calendar entry or whatever that you have created. And that is, in my opinion, the most important type of backup anyone can have. So let's talk for a moment about version backups. Why should you have version backups? Again, because you never know. I've had people say, that's silly. I'm just going to make one copy of everything and that's great. I never, ever, ever, ever need to go back to an older version of something. And I think, you say that now. I've thought that too, and I've been proved wrong. Sometimes things go wrong, remember that random stuff goes wrong. You might need to go back to something that you have changed or has been changed without your knowledge, or something that has been deleted either on purpose or otherwise. Version backups are because you never know. Now, there are lots of ways to create version backups. Let's start with the easiest one, and that's Time Machine. Time Machine has been around for a long, long time. It's built into Mac OS, which means it's free. You don't have to pay for anything. Well, you'd have to pay for one thing, and that is some storage device on which to store your Time Machine backups. Now, in my book, I go to tremendous lengths to talk about what kinds of storage devices are available, the pros and cons of different kinds of storage devices, what kind to get, how much capacity, all those kinds of things. I don't want to go into a super great amount of detail about that today, but this would be an appropriate point to say a couple of words. For many years, conventional wisdom has said, all right, you go out and you buy an external hard drive. Now, your external hard drive needs to have enough capacity to hold everything on your Mac and then some, because remember, we're storing versions. So the amount of data that is stored on that external hard drive is going to increase over time. Now, if you have a 1 terabyte drive in your Mac, whether that's an SSD or a hard drive, but only 200 gigabytes of that is full, you don't necessarily need to have a 2 terabyte hard drive for backups. Doesn't hurt, but the important thing is not to have a drive that is bigger than your Mac's internal drive. It's important to have a drive that's bigger than the amount of data you have or are likely to have in the next several years. I would say looking for 1.5 to 2 times the capacity would be a fair target. So it used to be that I would just say, if you're interested in Time Machine, if Time Machine is the particular way in which you want to do your version backups, you go out and you buy a nice big external hard drive and you plug it in. These days, things have gotten a little more complicated. Boy, there are 95 different flavors of USB, and there are 4 different flavors of Thunderbolt, and there are faster drives and slower drives and hybrid drives, and of course, there are SSDs. Now, I have a number of SSDs. Here's one that's several years old. This is a SanDisk SSD, a USB-C, and I have newer and better ones. Of course, SSDs are faster and they're more reliable most of the time. They're also more expensive. So that's up to you. For the purpose of Time Machine, whether you want to use a hard drive, which is cheaper but more prone to failure and slower, or you want to use an SSD, which is faster, more expensive, more reliable, that's kind of your call. Either one will work. But you need to have something. It is also possible to use a device sitting on your shelf, such as a NAS, a Synology or QNAP or Drobo network attached storage device. It is also possible to use another Mac you own as a network server. These sorts of setups are a little more involved than what I want to get into today. I will just say it is possible, details in the book. Whether you're talking about some little thing that you attach directly to your Mac, or a bigger thing that you plug into the wall and also attach to your Mac, or a network device, one way or another, you have to have somewhere that you can store your stuff. Later on, we will talk about other types of backups besides version backups, besides Time Machine. Those also need to have a destination. If you are going the simplest route, if you're plugging a hard drive or an SSD directly into your Mac with a physical cable, then a thing's going to pop up on your screen saying, hey, I just noticed a new drive. Would you like me to use this to back up your Mac with Time Machine? And you can literally say, yes, please. And it happens. And really, that's all you have to do. That's not all that you can do, but that's all you have to do. It is really, really simple. Time Machine will take care of formatting the drive and setting it up the way it needs to be set, backing up your stuff, and every hour it will just run automatically and back up anything that has changed in that last hour. So Time Machine is a way to get your version backups. Now, you manage Time Machine in the Time Machine pane of system preferences. Now, in a situation where you attached a drive, but you didn't say, yes, please back this up, your Time Machine pane would look something like this. Well, it's not turned on and the backup disk is not selected. So you click the button and you navigate to the disk you want to use to hold your Time Machine backups. You can choose whether or not you want to encrypt your backups. I recommend encrypting them. That's another whole topic. I generally recommend always encrypting everything. And the logic is really simple. If I've got a backup of all of my important data stored on my hard drive or SSD, and that thing gets lost or stolen, and it's not encrypted, well, then whoever has it can see all my stuff, and that isn't great. If it is encrypted, that puts a very high barrier between the random person that has my stuff and being able to actually read it. But it's your choice. Doesn't make things significantly slower. You won't even notice the change in speed, but it does make them more secure. So you select your backup disk and you check the box, backup automatically, that's it. You'll get a little countdown, the first backup will start, and then every hour thereafter, you'll get automatic backups of whatever has changed in that period of time. Now, it is possible, if you have an external hard drive or SSD connected to your Mac, it is possible to then disconnect that and take it and plug it into a second Mac and use that to back up too. You can do that. It's inconvenient because you got to do a lot of plugging and unplugging all the time. And obviously, when the thing is not plugged in, the drive will not be able to store backups from that device. But it can be done. Likewise, if you really want to avoid dealing with cables at all, there are the network approaches that I talked about earlier, and that is your choice. Now, I have to say, a kind of love-hate relationship with Time Machine. I love that Apple has a built-in free backup solution, and it works pretty well, and it's pretty easy to use. That interface that I showed you a few slides back with the sort of time travel thing, well, the way that you get at older versions of files that support versions is exactly the same interface you'll see for Time Machine. So you can go back and say, well, show me the way my disk looked 5 days ago or whenever it was, and you can navigate the disk, look at any file and say, oh yeah, that's the file I need, click the restore button and you're done. So it's easy to use, it's fun to use, but it's not for everyone. There are aspects of Time Machine that are weird and annoying. And one of the most annoying things is sometimes, and this has happened to me more times than I can remember, I'll have my backups, they seem to be going fine. They've been going for weeks, months, even years. And then a message will pop up on the screen that says something like, oh, sorry, there's a problem with your backups. We can no longer, Time Machine can no longer use this destination. You're going to have to either erase your disk or plug in a new disk and start again. And I'm like, what? Why? How? What went wrong? Are you just telling me that all of a sudden, with no warning and for no apparent reason, I can no longer access my old backups? Yeah, kind of. kind of. So those sort, and there are a variety of other things that can go wrong with Time Machine too. I wish it were more reliable. I wish it were more transparent. Unfortunately, there are still some aspects of Time Machine that aren't quite there. And it has various other kinds of limitations too, especially in a network setup. You know, I have a bunch of Macs in my house, not only the Mac that's in front of me and that Mac over there and that Mac over there, but my wife's Mac in the other office, all backed up over a network to Time Machine. And as my family's system administrator, I wish I had a little more flexibility and control over how each of these devices were backed up and restored. If Time Machine is not to your liking, for whatever reason, it's buggier than you need it to be, or it doesn't have a feature you want, don't worry, there are lots of other choices. For example, there's Retrospect. Retrospect has been around for a long time, at least since like the System 6 days, maybe earlier. I don't remember. It's been around for a long time. Now, Retrospect is mainly designed for like a corporate environment. So where you have an office with dozens or hundreds or thousands of Macs, and you're going to have a person whose job is to manage all those backups. And maybe they're using not just a hard drive, not just a bank of hard drives, but like all these, you know, tape drives and fancy things to back up all the Macs and Windows devices and other things. So if you have super crazy needs like that, great. But there are also really lightweight personal versions of Retrospect. There's one called Retrospect Solo, which I would have to look it up. Sorry, I think it costs about $50. And it has almost all the features of the full Retrospect, except that it's designed to work on just one computer. And it's very powerful. It has lots of features. It is deeply configurable. You can get it to use any kind of schedule you want, have all these fancy rules about what files are included or excluded under various circumstances, and all this data integrity checking and so forth. It is a deep, powerful backup tool, and yet it's accessible enough if you just want to do something basic that you don't have to spend, you know, an afternoon reading a manual. So that's an example. Another example, which a lot of you have probably heard of and are more familiar with, is an app called Carbon Copy Cloner. Now, Carbon Copy Cloner has not been around for quite as long. It appeared around the same time as Mac OS X did. And from that name Cloner, you will get the idea that it was originally intended to make a complete clone of your entire hard drive. Times have changed. It can still do that, but that is now pretty low on its list of features. Nowadays, it has evolved into an all-purpose backup tool, and it can create versioned backups. It handles versioning a lot differently than Time Machine and a lot differently than Retrospect does, but it can save multiple versions of your files and allow you to go back and get files you've deleted and so forth. It is a very good all-purpose file backup and copying tool. We will revisit this in a little bit. Now, if neither of those are to your liking, again, don't worry. You have dozens of choices. If you go to this URL, alt.cc/BA, you will find the online appendixes for my backups book. And there are feature comparison tables there for many Mac backup apps, as well as cloud services. So you can compare the prices and the features and what they all can do. Most of these apps have free trials that you can download. So you don't have to worry about, well, I don't like that particular company or app or interface or whatever. There is something for you. If you don't like Time Machine, great, try Carbon Copy Cloner. Don't like that, maybe Retrospect will work for you. Don't like that, how about Acronis True Image? Oh, well, maybe you like the Indigo thing. Maybe you like, I mean, there are so many choices. I have preferences, of course, but my overall concern is that you pick something that works for you and that you like and that you feel comfortable using. So if you want more advice about what the options are, go check out those appendixes. Now, as I've written about version backups and I've talked to many user groups about it, I've noticed that some common questions come up. And this is where we go back to what Sheeta said earlier about, oh yeah, hold your questions to the end because maybe Joe will answer them as he goes. This is my attempt to get at a couple of those. So people have said, well, let's talk about photos. All right, I have the Photos app on my Mac and then my other devices, and I have iCloud Photos turned on. So if I'm doing that, do I still need to back up my photos with Time Machine? And similar things could be said about books, music, and other kinds of data. My answer to this is maybe. It depends. iCloud Photos is pretty good. It does not give you all of the versioning capabilities that a full backup system would. For example, if you go back and edit your photos and have different versions of them, or edit your albums or other, metadata and stuff in photos, you can't necessarily get at that older stuff through iCloud Photos. And of course, the same rules apply, that if you're depending on cloud storage alone, the cloud storage could have problems. I have to say, in terms of photos, it is a really, really good idea to use iCloud Photos or something like it from another developer, because you can never have too many copies of your very valuable and precious photos. I use it. I don't think of it as a backup so much as an extra copy for my convenience. So that's my perspective on iCloud Photos. Another question I get asked a lot is, if I'm using Time Machine, okay, Time Machine is what I'm using for version backups. Now I'm using one of the newer versions of macOS Monterey or Big Sur or Catalina. And of course, in these newer versions of macOS, we're now using the new APFS file system, and a lot of things have changed. Do I have to use an SSD? Well, my Mac has a built-in SSD. Most Macs for quite a few years have had. Do I have to use an SSD for a Time Machine backup? And the answer is no, you don't have to. You can store a Time Machine backup on a regular hard drive, which is much cheaper per unit of capacity. Now, I do have to remind you, it will be slower and it will be less reliable. It is not likely to last as long as an SSD, but there's no reason you can't use a hard drive, even though your data on your Mac is stored on an SSD. Yes, you absolutely can use a hard drive for Time Machine. Another question I've been asked is, so I did this, great, I turned on Time Machine, or I used Retrospect or Carbon Copy Cloner or whatever it is. Am I good now? Is that all the backup I need? And to that I say, not really, no, I wouldn't. And I'm just gonna, I want to be honest and set your expectations correctly. I have had backup drives fail. Like, oh no, I've lost a file. I need to go back to my backups. Plug in the backup drive. Oh no, the backup drive isn't working. It happens. All right, stuff happens to your backups. And so I always recommend Secondary backups. Sure, plug in that hard drive or SSD or whatever, but also have another form of backup that is stored in a different place and will be a backup for your backup. So we'll talk about that in the next slide. Here we go. Yes, there it is. Offsite backups. All right. So picture this. I've got my array of Macs and hard drives and SSDs around me here, and I've got lots of backups. There's a NAS sitting on the shelf over there, and there's hard drives all around. Now I come home one day and find that my house is burned down, or there's been a fire or a flood, or somebody broke in and stole all my stuff. Whoops, all of my backups have gone too. It's great that I had backups, and those backups did protect me against bugs and forgetfulness and user error and cats walking on my keyboard, but they don't protect me against everything. So do you want the kind of backups that will protect your data against the odd, meteorite hitting your house or whatever? Then you want to supplement your local backups with offsite backups. And offsite backups just means not here, someplace else. Well, there are a couple of ways you can do that. You could go buy a second external hard drive or SSD, and every once in a while, you take a trip to the bank and put it in your safe deposit box, or you store that at a friend's house, or if you are at home and doing your backups, you might store the backup at work, or vice versa. Anyway, it doesn't matter so much where it is as that it's not where you are, not where your computers are. There are these schemes you can come up with where, okay, I've got 3 drives, and at any time, one of those drives is connected to my Mac, and another one of them is in my safe deposit box, and the third is just for shuttling in between. So I take my drive C, hook it up to my Mac, disconnect drive A, take that to the bank, put that in the drive B that was in the safe deposit box. So I always have this rotation. Okay, you can come up with whatever kind of scheme you want. The point is, one way, the sort of old school sneakernet way of doing offsite backups, is just have more than one and rotate them offsite. There is an easier way though, a much easier way, and that is to use a cloud backup service. Once again, I refer you to the online appendixes of my book that I linked to earlier. There are a lot of online backup services. A couple of the better known ones here are Backblaze and iDrive. There are others. These give you that extra help in case something goes wrong with your local backups. Oh, I didn't realize there was some error and Time Machine wasn't backing up and it was supposed to. It's okay because I have Backblaze turned on, and that's also going to put a copy of my stuff in the cloud. Now, I have tried lots and lots of cloud backup services, and even the best ones, and I would say that at the moment, Backblaze is probably the best one. It has a weird and annoying interface. It's not super easy to use. Sometimes it doesn't back up the things I think it's going to back up, or not as soon as I think it should back them up. But it's pretty good, and it has saved me from myself more than a few times. This is also the type of thing where usually you can sign up for a free trial account, give it a whirl, see what works for you, read reviews online, go to the Wirecutter, go to wired.com, go to Macworld, PC World, reliable publications like that, see what they have to say about various online backup services. And these can give you that extra assurance of having a copy of your data, even if everything goes wrong with your local backups, without all the effort of taking stuff someplace else physically. Now, you might hear about or see commercials for an online backup service called Carbonite. Let me just say, don't use that. Don't use Carbonite. Carbonite is not good. And I go into some more detail about why it's not good in the book. They have good commercials and good marketing, but their actual product is not very good. And it is especially not good when it comes to the Mac. Now, weirdly, Carbonite's Windows version is totally different from their Mac version. And the Windows version is not bad. It's not my favorite. It's not great, but it has the basic set of features I would want in online backups. The Mac version, however, even after all these years, doesn't have many of the super important features that are in the Windows version, including versioning. I mean, this is 2022. Versioning should be an absolute no-brainer, but the Mac version of Carbonite doesn't have it. There are some other issues too. So use what you want. I recommend against Carbonite. Now, we've talked about version backups that are stored locally or on a network device. We've talked about offsite storage, which could include physically shuttling drives or using a cloud service like Backblaze. Is there anything else you might need? Well, maybe. Let's talk about a potentially tricky subject, and that is bootable duplicates. If you had asked me 5 years ago or longer, what does a Mac user need to do to back up their Mac properly? I would have said, well, there's no question at all. There's 3 things. There's version backups, there's offsite backups, and there's bootable duplicates. You have to have all 3 legs of the stool, right? No question. And my story 5 years ago would have been very simple. Bootable duplicate is a complete copy of everything on your Mac as it existed at some moment in time. It's stored on an external hard drive or SSD. And the reason to do that, the reason to have a bootable duplicate, in addition to all the version backups and cloud backups and things, is so that if your hard drive dies, you can get back to work immediately. So picture this, I'm working at my Mac and something goes wrong. Oh, a disk error, kernel panics, whatever, things are going kerflooey. Maybe I can't boot, or I can boot, but my apps aren't working or my files aren't there. I'm like, oh man, I've lost all this data. My apps won't open. What am I going to do? Okay, I've got backups. I've got my time machine backup. I've got my cloud backups, and I could spend, maybe I have to wipe my entire hard drive and spend hours or overnight or 24 hours restoring all that data. It's okay, your data is there, it's safe, but it could take many, many hours to put it all back from a backup if your drive dies completely. Well, during those however many hours, it's great that you will eventually get your backup back, but I got to get my work done. I can't afford to just press pause for 24 hours. I have to be able to send email. I have to be able to write documents. I have to be able to do video presentations. So the idea of a bootable duplicate was, all right, something goes really bad with your Mac, don't worry. You plug in your bootable duplicate, you reboot from the duplicate. Now you're no longer running from your internal SSD or hard drive. Now you're running from the duplicate. And guess what? The duplicate is complete. It is exactly the way your Mac looked like the last time you did the backup, and you can get your work done and then restore the backups at your leisure, kind of. This is a way to get back to work very, very quickly when some sort of disaster strikes. So that was the idea. You use some software to make a complete copy of everything on your disk, including the operating system, so that if something goes wrong, you can plug that in and get immediately back to work, even though you may have other more elaborate backups someplace else. Now, you may notice I've been using the past tense here a lot. That's what I would have said 5 years ago. I'm not saying that anymore, and I'll tell you why, but let's pretend that we are 5 years ago, or let's pretend that you are using an older version of Mac OS and an older Mac. what would I say to you? Well, I would say you pick up one of these apps. Now, lots of different Mac backup apps can create bootable duplicates. The two best known ones are Carbon Copy Cloner, which we already mentioned, and Super Duper. The one on the right there is Super Duper. Both of these were originally designed to do just this one specific task, to do it well, and to make it as easy as possible. Now, if you were using Carbon Copy Cloner, it would look something like this. It's a really, really simple interface. You have your source and you click on that and say, what drive do I want to back up? Well, it's probably going to be Macintosh HD. All right, that was easy. Where do I want to put my backup? Well, it's this external hard drive that I've plugged in. And you select the source and you select the destination and you click clone. You wait, you're done. And of course, you can put this on a schedule so that it updates itself however often you want. Super Duper is exactly the same concept. The window is arranged a little bit differently. Oh, there's a couple of pop-up menus at the top. We choose what I'm copying and where I'm copying it to. And then you click the Copy Now button. It's pretty simple. Once again, there's a schedule button you can click to have it update itself automatically. Now, both of these apps have a lot more features besides just duplicates. And in the case of Carbon Copy Cloner, those features include versioning, which I think is really important. Now, between these two apps, what I have observed over years and years of using both of them and watching their development, Carbon Copy Cloner is much more sort of on it, all right? So as Apple makes changes, Carbon Copy Cloner is much quicker to fix bugs, adopt new technologies, have compatibility with newer operating systems and features, and to add important new features. So I have more of a trust for Carbon Copy Cloner and more of a preference for it, which is not to say that there's anything wrong with Super Duper. I just think it's not as good. Now, why am I talking in the past tense about bootable duplicates? Used to say you have to have them. And now I'm saying you don't have to have them. In fact, they're somewhere between optional and useless. What could that possibly mean? Well, two things. On the one hand, bootable duplicates are not as necessary as they used to be. Why are they not as necessary? Well, one of the reasons they're not as necessary is that all Macs today use SSDs for their primary storage instead of hard drives. SSDs are much more reliable than hard drives. You are vastly less likely to have a disk error on an SSD that will take out the entire drive than you would be with a mechanical hard drive. So the frequency with which those situations would arise in which you are forced to use a bootable duplicate, the frequency has just gone way, way down. It's much less likely that you would get into that situation. Second thing that has changed, which I mentioned before, is the adoption of the new APFS file system. Compared to its predecessor, macOS Extended, also known as HFS Plus, APFS is much more reliable. It is much more error resistant. It has all kinds of redundancies and special features built into it that protect your data and make it less likely that you will have errors and data loss. One of the features of APFS is snapshots. And snapshots are a little bit involved. I can't get into a lot of detail about it today. But if you remember what I said earlier about versions, and I showed you the example from TextEdit, snapshots are kind of like that, but for your entire data, for all your data, for your entire user volume. And because it is relatively easy to restore now, not just a single file, but potentially your entire drive to an earlier state, while using hardly any storage and without even having to lift a finger. That's one less reason that you would have to have a bootable duplicate. Another thing that we have now that we didn't have, let's say 10 years ago, is recovery mode. So you can reboot your Mac into recovery mode. If it's an Intel-based Mac, you'll hold down Command R. If it's an M series Mac, you press and hold the power key and then click Options. So you boot into this mode where you're running from this special hidden partition on your SSD or hard drive, where you can make repairs, you can run Time Machine to restore files, you can even reinstall Mac OS if you need to. And you can do all of this really quickly and without having to go to the time and bother of completely wiping and restoring your entire Mac. On that topic, you may also realize that the last few versions of Mac OS have separated the system stuff, the stuff that you actually need to boot, from all of your user data. They are now on separate volumes. Now you don't normally see them. It looks like you just have Macintosh HD, just that one thing, but behind the scenes, it's really Macintosh HD, which is where your system stuff lives, and Macintosh HD-data, which is where your stuff lives. And the point of this is that Apple is trying to make macOS more bulletproof. Apple is trying to make it much less likely that malware or a bug or some other cause could prevent macOS itself from being able to boot. It's really, really hard for anything to touch the parts of macOS that are essential to booting. So that again is one less reason to have to ever need a bootable duplicate. On the other side, even if you did have a bootable duplicate, they're less useful than they once were. One of the reasons is you're going to have to store your bootable duplicate on an SSD. Technically, you could put it on a hard drive, but the APFS file system, for all its virtues, does not play well with mechanical hard drives. I have tried, and oh man, the performance is so slow. It is painful to the point of almost not being useful. So if you're going to have a bootable duplicate of a modern Mac OS, you're going to have to store it on an SSD, and that is going to imply quite a bit more money. So that's one element. Bootable duplicates are also finicky and they might not work. So this drive that I held up before, I used to be able to make bootable duplicates on this USB 3 drive with a USB-C connector. And unfortunately, they just don't work anymore. And I don't know why. The drive works for everything else, but it won't let me boot from it. I've tried many times. I've tried with Carbon Copy Cloner and SuperDuper and other tools. I just can't create a bootable duplicate anymore. I can create a bootable duplicate from a newer Thunderbolt 3 SSD that I have, but for some reason, this particular disk, this model won't work anymore. Is it because of a change in Monterey? Is it because, I don't know. I don't know what the problem is. But my observation has been that bootable duplicates, even to the extent that you can get them to work, are finicky and unreliable. Now, if you have an M series Mac and you can boot from your duplicate, okay, fine. But if your SSD, your built-in SSD dies completely, then you actually can't boot from your SSD either, because in order to even boot from an external volume, your Mac has to access a little bit of data hidden in a corner of your built-in SSD. So then what's the point? If the point of my bootable duplicate was to protect me against complete drive failure, and I've had a complete drive failure, but that prevents me from booting from the bootable duplicate, then what have I got? Nothing. Now that isn't true of Intel Macs, but it is true of M series Macs. By the way, it used to be that you could make a bootable duplicate of Mac A, plug that into Mac B, and boot from it. Well, you still can, as long as both of the machines use the same architecture. If I have a MacBook Air with an M1 chip and a Mac Studio with an M1 something something chip, great, I can use that bootable duplicate between the two of them. But if I have created my duplicate on an Intel-based Mac and I then try to plug that into an M series Mac or vice versa, then that won't boot. So for all those reasons, bootable duplicates are not quite what they used to be. So what can you do? Well, if you have a tool like Carbon Copy Cloner or SuperDuper or ChronoSync, I mean, there are other ones too, it is possible to make something called a one-time bootable duplicate. That is to say, one time, it will make a copy of everything on your internal drive, including macOS itself, that you can boot from. It will do that. But after that one time, any updates will only affect your personal data. So if you're installing, if you make this duplicate on macOS 12.3, and then tomorrow Apple updates us all to 12.4, you cannot then update the version of macOS on your duplicate by just recopying the system stuff. That won't work. There are ways to work around that, but the future updates that you use these apps like Carbon Copy Cloner and SuperDuper for will only update your personal data. As an alternative, what I now suggest is something called a data-only duplicate, which is exactly what it sounds like. You've got your system volume, you've got your user volume. Okay, so Macintosh HD, which contains the operating system itself, and Macintosh HD-data, which actually contains your stuff. What if you just cloned your own data volume and not the operating system itself? Can you use these tools to do that? Absolutely, you totally can. And in fact, if you wanted to, having created a duplicate of just that data volume, you could even install macOS on that volume, thus making it bootable. Now, you would still be back to where you were before in that you can't use one of these apps to update macOS on it, but at least you would have that result of a bootable duplicate. Either way, I want to remind you that if you want a bootable duplicate from a newer version of macOS, please use an SSD. You will thank me, believe me. Two final thoughts. First of all, I've had people write to me and say, okay, Joe, well, I read everything you wrote about bootable duplicates and version backups and cloud backups, but I decided to go my own way. I decided to do something else. And I say, well, you know, I've been studying this for many years, and I give this advice for a reason. All I can say is, if you're thinking about something else that is not what I recommend, think backwards. Think about a time in the future where you have lost a file, or you have discovered that your Mac is missing or something, and now you need to restore data. What are going to be the steps that you go through to do that? If you can't figure out those steps, you don't have a backup. The whole point of backing up is to be able to restore. And if you don't know how to restore, then your backup isn't really a backup. Secondly, always test your backups. This has happened to me. I back up my Mac. Later on, I need to restore some data from that backup, and the backup didn't work correctly. Some of my files weren't copied, or it was supposed to run on a schedule and it didn't. So when you haven't lost data yet, that's the time to test your backups and make sure that they are intact and that they really do work correctly. Now, Adam Angst has designated every Friday the 13th as International Verify Your Backups Day. So Friday the 13th, a day when things are supposed to go wrong. When that day comes around, plug in your backups or try downloading some files from your cloud service. Make sure they really are there and they work the way you thought they were going to. Of course, vastly more information, vastly more information, and freshly updated in this book. Take control of backing up your Mac. It's normally $15, but for you, how about 10 and a half? And you can get it at that URL. So we have about 5 minutes left, I think. I would like to know if there are any questions, and I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen.
Okay, of course there are questions. You know that. I'm going to try to run through these because we have so little time left. So quickly, how long does an app hold on to its versions?
It depends. The best ones hold on to them indefinitely. Some of them, like Retrospect, you can specify how long do you want to retain that old data, and it's up to you. I would generally say the longer you can hold on to it, the better.
All right, so if I were working in Pages and I constantly saved it, then I quit the app, when I open up the app, those versions will still be there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, next question. Let's say you've been backing up with Time Machine for several years. Your drive, you got a very large drive, and OSs have changed. Let's say you went from 10 to 11 or 11 to 12, so forth. Will the current OS be able to go all the way back into that Time Machine backup, or will it be stopped at a certain point?
You can definitely go back and restore older data. What you will not be able to do is use Time Machine to restore an older version of Mac OS. If you wanted to do that, you would have to erase your drive, download and reinstall the older version of Mac OS, and then restore your data. It would be quite a hassle. It can be done,
Okay.
but it's a hassle.
Okay. Does versioning take up Mac OS memory?
It depends on what you mean by memory. If you mean RAM, then no. Storage space on your disk or SSD, yes, but not very much, especially if you're using APFS, which is a very, very space efficient file system. So it won't take up very much space at all.
Is there a way to erase some of those versions, and would you recommend it?
There is a way you can erase those versions within Time Machine, and also Carbon Copy Cloner and ChronoSync, a number of other backup apps have an interface where you can go back and delete entire snapshots if you need to. I don't recommend that just as a matter of course. I only recommend doing that if you start running low on storage space on your backup drive.
Okay, great. Jonathan, can you unmute yourself and ask your question? Jonathan, are you here? Jonathan Shapiro? Okay, Jonathan's question was, why does speed matter for Time Machine?
So the reason speed might matter is two things. Number one, if you are restoring, like you've had a dreadful major data loss, now I need to restore many gigabytes of data, and I have to wait until that data has been restored till I can do my stuff. The restoring process will go far faster if you have an asset like a Thunderbolt 3 or 4 SSD than if you have a USB 2 hard drive or something. So that's part of it. Now, the hourly backups, of course, will also go faster. You might not care, you might not really notice. You will notice if the stuff you're backing up is really huge. Like, let's say you're using something like Parallels Desktop or VMware Fusion or something that creates these really gigantic files. You're doing a lot of video editing. Again, creating really gigantic files. It takes time for that data to go to your drive, and the faster your drive and the interface is, the faster those backups will happen. And a faster backup could, in some situations, mean the difference between having a copy of your data and not.
Can you find? You're welcome. Thank you, Jonathan.
I'm blind, so I'm slow.
Oh, I'm sorry. All right, didn't know. Thank you for finding that. Can you find particular emails in Time Machine, Joe?
Yes, if you use the Mac OS Mail app, it has a special feature where Time Machine is sort of built in. So you can go back in time and say, okay, show me my inbox as it looked last week, and you can actually restore individual messages. I wish Time Machine used to be able to do this with more apps. Nowadays, it's more limited. I wish Apple would improve that feature, but yes, you can. If you don't use the Mail app, there are ways to do it. Look at the book.
You explain how to do that in your book?
Yeah.
The backup book.
Yes.
Okay, great. Good to know. Okay. Tom Durkin, can you please unmute yourself and ask your question?
Yes, I'm running Mojave, and sometimes when I run the Time Machine runs, it slows on my Mac, so I just go and click skip this backup, and it's fine. I assume I'm not really losing anything. Just for an hour, I may not have a backup. Is that correct?
That's right. You will just lose the backup for that period of time. Now, as Time Machine accumulates more and more data, especially if it's storing that data on a mechanical hard drive, it can slow down. So that might be an argument right there for purging some of the older backups, or it might be an argument for switching to an SSD for your backup drive.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you, Tom.